Today, Carl and Nick preview the Broncos preseason Week 2 matchup as the team travels west to Santa Clara for joint practices and the Week 2 preseason matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers. You are listening to the Huddle Up Podcast.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up. I am Carl Dumler, and with me as always, we have Nick Kendell. This show's focus is all things that pertain to your Denver Broncos, with an extra focus on the NFL draft. Nick and I will continue to talk general Broncos news, but always have a focus towards team building. We still stand by our statement, though, that building teams in the offseason and playing armchair GM is just as fun as the actual games on Sunday. Also, in discussion with Chad and Will, we have decided we will be taking on the preview episodes this season, whereas Chad and Will will be doing the reviewing of the previous game. Nick thought this would be a good idea, as he and I are both more scout-based rather than storyline-based and can give you listeners a more in-depth breakdown of the Broncos' upcoming opponent, while also discussing key matchups and performers for the Broncos in the upcoming matchup. Follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell, MHH, and of course tweet us as much as you like. And follow the podcast account at HuddleUpPod. You can also find ours and our co-writers' content at milehighhuddle.com, and an affiliate of Scout Media and the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as iHeart, Stitcher, SoundCloud, CastBox, and Spreaker. Don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so please take the time to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Now, before we get to the show, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial with www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from on your own iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Now, reasons to look into this. One really popped up this last week for me was my wife and kid took a very long trip to go see her family. And they live in the, I might upset some Nebraska people, the wastelands of Nebraska. And I'm just kidding. Love my family, love Nebraska.
Go Hawks. Continue.
But she had a very long trip. And so right before the trip, she says, "Hey, do you think you could download an Audible book for me?" And 5 seconds later, I had an Audible book for her. So, and that made her trip so much better, gave us some things to talk about when she got back from her trip of how much she enjoyed the book. And so, Bronco fans or anybody else listening to this, I highly recommend Audible. Go give them a listen. You can get one free book. There's no real commitment. Try it for 1 month. See what you like, see what you don't like, whatever it may be. But make sure to put the Huddle Up on there, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, Carl, Audible's a great app, and it has plenty of football stuff on it. It has Bill Belichick's father's book, the Big Book of Football Scouting. So I know we all are not big fans of the evil hoodie and the evil empire over there in New England. But, if you want to get an in-depth look and building a roster and just the smarts of building a franchise, no better book out there. So once again, www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. So, all right, well, we will be taking over the preview episode. Last week, Chad, Carl, and myself did it, but Chad and Will be taking over more of the instant breakdown episode, whereas Carl and I will do more of the preparations that give you some scouting reports of opponents we want to see, important matchups, and Broncos that need to step forward. So with preseason, we're going to be looking more for the Broncos themselves rather than the 49ers, guys that need to step up, important position battles, and just key matchups that the Broncos are going to succeed against the 49ers or any upcoming opponent. But want to start off this week with the position battles / roster bubbles with the wide receiver 3, 4, 5, and 6. So essentially everybody behind Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, we do not know, the order, how they're going to shake out, who's going to make the team. So recently, Carlos Henderson had thumb surgery just this past week, and maybe that's part of the reason he stunk so much in the game against the Bears with the muff punts, the muff kickoffs, pardon me. He did have one good kickoff, but he was struggling tremendously in that game, which is unfortunate to see. But he's going to be out for a little bit with a thumb surgery and was listed as week to week. Latimer, impressive. Benny Fowler, kind of a no-show, and McKenzie, he had the big touchdown, but other than that, you didn't see so much of him. So, Carl, what are you looking for this week from the wide receivers 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all those guys, but after the big two?
Yeah, it's looking for these guys to be consistent. Really, Cody Latimer was the only one last week, and that's hard to do in preseason. Latimer, he was able to do it because he got a lot of short passes thrown his direction, where just watching Cody Latimer individually, he had a lot of times where he was lined up with McKenzie, and they had McKenzie kind of do the clear out route to kind of take guys with him to open things up for Latimer. And so it's kind of hard to really read too much into one guy over the other when it comes to preseason, because there's just certain routes that favor one receiver over another. But it's still an individual. I mean, that's how you do preseason. You kind of break it down individually. You don't look at them as a collective. You try to look at them as individuals of, did they win their battle? And last week I don't think Benny Fowler did that. That's one thing I think we're gonna talk about here quite a bit, because that's the real matchup to me is Fowler versus Latimer for that wide receiver 3 position. Receivers 4, 5, and 6 don't see the field a whole lot.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, you hope not. And really, even when you go to those big packages where you really try to spread them out, a lot of times you still have a tight end in the game. And then you have a running back in the backfield. And so you have 3 wide, 1 tight end, 1 running back. And so, yeah, even there, it's still the top 3 guys are the ones that you're looking for. And the Broncos, that's been a huge concern. They haven't had a 3rd wide receiver since Welker. And even Welker's last year was not great, because he had the Star Wars helmet, or yes. What's the movie? Spaceballs. There it is. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's what it looked like to me. And so even that year, it was tough to see him. So really, since 2013, we haven't had that 3rd wide receiver that can really step into the role. And so one of these guys, Broncos need him to step up big time. And there's some names here that are very intriguing. Like I said, Cody Latimer, probably the most impressive this last week. Benny Fowler was kind of a no-show. McKenzie had the one big catch, but he just wasn't really given much of an opportunity beyond that. Khalif Raymond.
Yeah, there's a name. He's out of nowhere. I'm glad we talked about him for a second on the roster breakdown one. I'm like, we should probably talk about Khalif Raymond. He's not going to make the team, but because they drafted McKenzie and they double dipped in those smaller, twitchy wide receivers in McKenzie and Carlos Henderson. So how is Khalif Raymond going to make the team? Well, nothing shuts my big mouth up quicker than play on the field. So hats off to you, Raymond. You're fighting for a spot, but he did well.
And he had the 2 things that he needed to have happen, not only for him to play great, but also for an injury. And Carlos Henderson going down gives him that opportunity to step in and show that he deserves a roster spot. And he definitely did that. He, like you said, he provided a huge spark. The Broncos talking about juice. Well, maybe they already had the juice on the team. They just didn't know how to use it. And that was special teams, though. We need to see him on the field as a wide receiver, because, again, that's what you need. You have some special teams guys, but do we have that 3rd wide receiver? And then, of course, Jordan Taylor. He made a couple catches, but he also made some bad decisions. He didn't really, when they absolutely needed him to pick up that extra yard, he kind of stepped back and tried to make too big of a play. And, he had a guy right there. I mean, that wasn't completely all on him, but it's still, you want to see a guy make a guy miss. That's kind of the rule in the NFL is get the ball in your hands, make one guy miss. That's what you need to see, especially like running backs, hit the hole, make one guy miss. We'll block everybody else, but you got to make one guy miss. And he wasn't able to do that this last game. He's done it before. He did last preseason. I remember a big play where Paxton Lynch hit him on pretty much like a screen pass, and he took it for a big touchdown
against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
He also had that big play against the Saints where he broke like 3 or 4 tackles. Remember?
That's right.
Mic'd up. I think they had DT mic'd up, and they said, watch this, because they had a play designed for Taylor, and he broke like 2 or 3 tackles because he's a big dude.
Yeah.
But gosh, made me pull my hair out. Sorry.
Yeah, he's got better quickness than you would think for a guy his size. So maybe, but like I said, he's got a lot to prove too. You know, that 6th wide receiver spot could get huge here between Raymond and Taylor. You know, I think Brown's kind of out of it right now,
barring something big happening.
Right. I know we say that, and then we said that about Raymond, and now he's right there in the hunt. So, you know, Brown, maybe we just helped you out by mentioning your name on this show, but, but no, it's an interesting group. There's more excitement. There's more hope with this group than in years past, I would say, but there's also a lot of unproven talent. You know, Cody Latimer. How many times have we gotten into preseason and training camp and heard, you know, Cody Latimer is destroying the defense. He's making these circus catches left and right, you know, all these kind of things. And then we get to the season and it's like, where's Cody Latimer? You know, we heard how great he was doing, and then he doesn't even get on the field. And, you know, the biggest part for him is, you know, coaches and quarterbacks just don't trust him. He hasn't proven that he can run the right routes at the right time. He hasn't proven that he can read a defense, and especially, you know, the NFL, it's a lot about option routes for wide receivers. You know, you can call a play in the huddle, but once you get up there, it's still about reading the defense. And it's not just for the quarterback, it's for the wide receivers too. And so far, yeah, he hasn't proven that in his career. So what's different about this year? You know, we've heard some rumblings that the Broncos were really hoping that some of these other wide receivers would step up so that the Broncos wouldn't have to worry about Cody Latimer, that they could let him go and feel comfortable with it. Well, other guys haven't really stepped up to take him out. And so it's kind of at that point of just really hoping that something finally clicked for Cody Latimer in year 4.
One can hope, and I don't want to be one that, you know, is too optimistic with a preseason game, but this last week was the best I've ever seen him. I've never gone to one of the practices or anything, so I can't talk about how he's dominating practice or anything in that regard, or training camp. But in terms of live action, he was making catches that you don't see, you know, Demaryius Thomas make. They were tough. He was getting hit. He was going up, and the ball was not moving when it hit his hands. So I was very impressed. You've been working on a piece on this, haven't you, Carl?
Yeah, I did, and that's exactly right. You know, Latimer, I think I messaged you right after I got done with the article, because I was so impressed by him. He not only was it tough catches, but I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. When I'm watching wide receivers, there are a few things that I'm looking for, and I think I've talked about this before. A little bit of that foot speed, you know, that ability to make quick cuts to be able to get themselves open, because, you know, long speed as a wide receiver, it's good, but it's not end all be all. You know, that's one route of going deep, you know, and teams can kind of shut that down once they figure out that's all you can do. So guys have to learn how to get open with their foot quickness, you know, their ability to make cuts. And DT is a great example of that, of a guy who worked really hard at his route running to be able to get himself open. You know, Peyton Manning made him do that. And he's the type of receiver he is today because of Peyton Manning and his work with Peyton Manning. And I mean, he was an athletic freak before that, but so was Cody Latimer. You know, he's not quite as fast, but he's got greater leaping ability. He's got greater hands than what DT does. That's what I saw when I saw him coming out of college. But yeah, the route running was never great. He ran about 3 or 4 routes in college. There's a lot of these guys, that's all they run is 3 or 4 routes. And I haven't seen Cody Latimer be able to do much more than that. And so this game, what I saw, not only great hands when he was in traffic, where most guys, when they have guys barreling down on them, they want to let the ball get to their body. One that delays how quickly the ball gets to you. I mean, I know it's just that hair of a second, but in the NFL, when things are just inches, you know, one way or the other, and especially when it hits your body, it wants to bounce off your body. Where hands, you can really clamp down, and every one of his catches, I saw him clamp down with his hands. I mean, he just is such a natural hand catcher. It's impressive. So it helps him to really make those tough catches in traffic and not drop those ones that you absolutely need to make. Second thing I saw was that he had just this tremendous foot quickness to really press up the field. He didn't really run a lot of deep routes in this one. Most of his routes were...
Nobody really did.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And for him, especially, he ran a lot of in routes, a lot of slant routes. And those are 2 plays, especially from the slot position, that he would run a lot. Those are two key plays that you require of that kind of wide receiver. And he did. He would press with where he would take 3 or 4 steps forward, and you'd see the cornerback just bailing straight backwards, and would catch him a lot of times really flat-footed. And all of a sudden he'd cut back in, and right there would be the football. Both Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch both were able to have great timing with him. That was nice to see, where right when he was coming out of his break, they're both winding up their arms to throw to him and just hit him. I mean, there's a lot of defenders in the area. I mean, that's the hard part, is there wasn't many opportunities for yards after the catch on these type of plays. And unfortunately, they kept running it so much, the defense just keyed it in on them. There's a 3rd and 8 play that they tried to run the exact same play for like the 4th time in a row when they were passing. And the cornerback just came up and just hit Cody Latimer right away, and there's a linebacker that was right there as well. So, yeah, like I said, but it was good to see him really press forward and force that cornerback to respect his speed, to respect his ability to go deep, and then be able to make that quick cut in. He didn't have a lot of wasted steps. He wasn't perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say he has become this elite route runner, but he's better. I mean, it is night and day compared to his rookie year, where he'd almost have to come to like a complete stop to be able to try to make a cut to the middle of the field. He'd be taking, 2 or 3 extra steps, where now it's, 3 steps forward, all of a sudden 1 step to the side, and he's gone. And that's a huge difference, and that's promising. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for some promising things that maybe they're a little bit different. And Cody Latimer, for me, he has shown that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very impressed with him and with how much hype we got for about Benny Fowler, from DT and the coaches. Like, Benny Fowler is the obvious wide receiver 3. I can only really go off of the film, and he was a no-show compared to Cody Latimer. Granted, the sample size is very small, but that's what I have to go off of. And Latimer right now, I would have to say, is winning the wide receiver 3. Jordan Taylor, you mentioned him a little bit. The thing that made me want to pull my hair out is that he had, I can't remember if it was a 3rd down or a 2nd down, but he had the 1st down. All he had to do was stretch out for it. But instead he kind of backtracked and tried to make too much out of it instead of just getting the 1st down. And he fell short. And I believe it turned out to be a 4th and 1 after that. And we got stuffed. It wasn't the Juwan Thompson one. It was the one earlier. And you just can't have that. So, if you're a big guy, fall forward to get the 1st down. The big plays are good, but if you're not getting 1st downs, that's the main goal. So overall, sorry, go ahead.
And this offense, that's something always to keep in mind with these players is we're not going to be a top 5 offense this year, barring some kind of miracle, act of God kind of thing. The Broncos offense at best is going to have to hope for about average, above average.
Oh my gosh, is that John Elway coming down from the press box? Is he getting his jersey?
Then we might be okay. I've seen him throw it at practice. Man, he still has a cannon for an arm.
He's got that dad bod now too.
But he does, and he's got a limp. Yeah, that's for sure. But anyway,
pocket QB.
Yeah, and with this type of offense, every 1st down counts. And also for the defense too. If you're keeping them off the field for at least another 3 plays, probably another minute less of playing time, of actual game time, and that's huge in these type of games that are usually for the Broncos this year. It's probably going to be a lot of close games, both ways of winning and losing. Their defense is going to keep them in every single game. And so, yeah, you got to go pick up that 1st down. You can't worry about trying to turn an 8-yard pass into a 40-yard gain. Make it a 10-yard gain. Go get that 1st down. Stop dancing around. Stop letting them come and make a play on you. And, yeah, that's just not a good look. That's not understanding the situation that you find yourself in.
Lack of situational awareness and what you are as a player. You're not Tyreek Hill. You talked about it does have a little bit of wiggle for a big guy, but he was at the 1st down marker. Fall forward and get the 1st down.
Right.
So I think right now, if I had to pick, it depends on obviously with Henderson's injury, but Raymond's right back in the hunt. He played well. He had a big catch, I believe, the other day in practice. From what I heard, he made jaw-dropping down the sideline catch for a 36-yard pass from Trevor Siemian, which he had 2 defenders wrapped all over him, and everybody was pretty in awe from it. And he had a big game in the preseason, so he's right back in the hunt. And I'm not sure if Taylor's going to make this team. Latimer, Benny Fowler, I think they're pretty much – I can't imagine them not making the team. Granted, you could have an injury or something, but right now, if Henderson starts out the year injured or maybe even on the PUP, I don't know. Raymond and Taylor, there's only 6 spots, maybe only 5, but 6 spots I'd guess, and those guys might not make it. So we'll see what happens.
Vance Joseph the other day actually announced that they're planning on keeping 6 wide receivers.
Yep.
So that's kind of the number you're looking for, and yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm guessing just from I've read up a little bit on that tendon tear in the thumb, and of course all injuries depend on severity. And a lot of times they don't know the complete severity until they actually get in there and start the surgery. So I haven't heard on the exact severity of how it's going to be, but usually they say it's a 6-week or more recovery. So right now you're looking at him missing probably the first month of the season at the earliest, unfortunately. And
at that point, you should just put him at PUP.
Well, I don't think since he played in training camp, he can't go on PUP. I think he can only go on IR to return.
Oh, okay.
Now they can have 2 players come back now. They changed that rule. It's 2 players instead of 1. So they can save one of those for him, but that would mean that he'd be out for the first 8 weeks of the season. So that's kind of, to me, I think that's what you're looking at with him. I think he got to. It's going to be tough for him to come back, and what kind of impact can he really make? And also, he was getting a little bit better as training camp went on. I mean, we heard he was starting to make some plays and wasn't dropping as many passes and stuff like that. But how much can you really count on him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the problem where Khalif Raymond, he's starting to show you can really count on him to go out there and make a play for you. And he's showing a little bit more burst, I think, than last year. And so, yeah, right now I'd be okay with keeping Khalif Raymond, having him be your kick returner, have him go be out, maybe have a couple packages for him and McKenzie to go make some plays, on the offense. Otherwise, count on Betty Fowler, Cody Latimer, DT and Sanders to be your 4 guys that are really on the field for the offense.
Yes, agreed completely. And I don't expect the wide receivers to have much of a challenge this week with the 49ers secondary. They do have a good young cornerback in Rashad Robinson, who was kicked off LSU, but I think he was drafted in the 4th round last year. I was a big fan of him just because I like the bigger athletic corners, and he's their cornerback 1 right now. They also have Dante Johnson, not really much to write about, and a rookie from Colorado, Akilla Witherspoon. So going to see a Colorado son there battling the second team. So hopefully they'll run it at him because he is not a physical guy. He does not like to tackle. And the secondary, in the safety unit, they do have some good young safeties. They got Jimmy Ward, who is a former first-round pick, and Eric Reed, who's a former first-round pick as well. Neither of them really lived up to that stock. That was, I'd say, a couple misses there by Trent Baalke. But overall, not the best secondary. So our secondary should have our wide receivers should have their way with the secondary this week. It just probably mostly depends on the quarterback getting them the ball.
Right.
So now I want to move on to the next part was edge rusher depth. So, with Shane Ray out, Shaq Barrett, and Von Miller going to rest again. I believe he's resting again. Is that correct?
I have not heard one way or the other, but I think the way that they described it is because of the other 2 injuries, they are a little bit nervous about putting Von Miller out there for snaps that he doesn't really need. So my guess would be that he wouldn't play right now. All I've heard is that Jamal Charles is not playing and Matt Paradis is not playing.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that he'll be in there. Maybe he'll play like Derek Wolfe, where they played the first series and got him the heck out of there because he doesn't have anything to prove. He knows what he's doing. It's not like there's that much that has changed schematically. So maybe get in there for a second to get some reps with Gotsis and Kerr and the other guys, but overall doesn't need to play there a long time. But what I'm mostly looking forward to is Edebali and Dora repeating this week. Edebali and Dora had great games last week. I was pretty impressed with them, especially Edebali. He's not, the most twitched up guy or the strongest or the lengthiest. He doesn't have incredible tools, but overall, he played a pretty good game, and he's a strong hand fighter, and he has a motor. There's plenty of times where it was second and third effort where he'd finally break that block and then get after the quarterback. And when I did a film breakdown of Adam Gotsis and Edebali are most consistent second-team pass rushers. So overall, I think that we do have some depth there. They're not the guys above them. They're not Ray. They're not Barrett. They're not obviously not Vaughn. There's nobody like Vaughn. But overall, I think we do have some good depth there. And with the 49ers, they do have a solid bookends in the tackle group. They have Joe Staley, a veteran former first-round pick, and a younger guy, but been a pretty solid right tackle. Von Miller has complimented him, and Trent Brown. So they do have, they're not the best team. 49ers picked, they had the second overall pick last year for a reason because they They suck. But they do have some decent players, and I think this is going to be a better test for edge rushers this week than what the Bears had last week.
I will say both guys, Edebali and Dora, definitely impressed me more than I thought they would, but especially Dora.
Yes.
I was one that he got a lot of hype last year because he had the 2-sack game against the Bears, I think it was.
Might have been 3.
And I went back and watched those sacks, and a lot of times it was because the other guy on the other side forced the quarterback to scramble to Dora's side. And it was pretty much like the quarterback just ran into Dora. And, and I'm kind of going, it's a sack. I mean, it's great. I mean, he was right there where you need to be, but it wasn't really him like beating his guy is what I'm kind of getting at here. But this game, I actually saw him kind of beat his guy, had plenty of times where he showed off his strength of pushing the tackle right back into the quarterback's lap. And like I said, Edebali, he is a great hand fighter. Man, he never stops fighting with his hands. And that's great to see. There was a couple times he lost the leverage battle, especially in the run game, and kind of got blown back just a little bit. But otherwise, Edebali, great game. Dora did a great job holding up the edge. There's a couple times where he really forced the running back because he'd get depth in his pass rush or his bull rush, whatever you want to call it, and would force a running back to have to cut back. And that's great to see. That's what you need to see. That's what we were lacking so much last year. Our guys were just getting blown off the line of scrimmage in the run game. So to see our guys actually pushing the offensive linemen backwards, that's always a huge plus. But it was the Bears, and they don't exactly have the greatest tackles. So yes, this is can you repeat? That's a big thing about preseason is you can win one game and look otherworldly. And, for those who were really on the big Kyle Sloter train, after his big performance, I went back and I looked at Tim Tebow in his first preseason game, had a really good game. I think he completed about 65 or 67% of his passes and had a touchdown run, and, he moved the ball. And I don't remember if people were really screaming for Tim Tebow to come in and start back then, but you always have to keep that in mind. If these are third string guys going against third string guys, and his one big pass was, wide open wide receiver kind of thing. But like I said, it's the same thing with, kind of these guys of you did great. Can you repeat it? You got better competition this week. What does it look like now? If you can go out and beat Staley and Brown, I'm going to feel a lot better about our depth moving forward. I'm going to feel a lot better that we keep both Edebali and Dora and feel like we can make it through the first couple games without Shane Ray and Shaq Barrett. So, yeah, both those guys, great performances. Hope they can continue it on. And then there's one other guy that you have listed here, Walker. They moved him to outside linebacker because of the injuries, and he was very much hit and miss in this game. For a rookie, you have to keep that in mind. You can't expect him to be Von Miller day one. He had his plays. He had a few plays where he was really past his guy. He did a great job showing his ability to anticipate the snap. I think that was one of his best things in college was his ability to guess on the snap count and really attack. And he did that about 2 or 3 times. But he also showed exactly what he struggled with in college of getting blown off the line in the run game. And I know they brought him in here to be a pass rusher. That's something I always have to keep in mind. But you want to see him be able to, especially against those second and third units, really hold up in the run game.
Yeah, especially as an edge rusher, as a 5 technique, 7 technique, 3 technique, when you're going up against, guards, centers, double teams, especially. If you're getting blown back there, I'm not going to be happy about it. But when you're the edge defender and you're getting blown back like he was against the Bears this week, that does have me concerned. I won't lie. Many of the big runs seemed like they were running at number 57. And I don't know. I still think he's best fit as a 3-tech. And I understand that, with Ray and Barrett being injured, that we suddenly felt pretty thin there. And, this guy did play some 7 technique at Florida State. Maybe we can get him playing in a 2-point stance at 9 technique a little farther out if he loses some weight. But it just did not look as good as I'd hoped. I think his best fit in the long run will still be that 3 technique where he's going to line up over that guard and attack in that regard. So, hopefully we'll see this week. He doesn't have that elite burst that I want from my stand-up edge rusher, especially in the 3-4 defense. If we were playing 4-3, it'd be a different thing because you want those guys to be a little more bulky and edge guarders in terms of run defense. But those 3-4 stand-up guys, they need to be able to get after the pass rusher. And his best pass rush, the parts where he got closest, he jumped off sides. So, this is just one matchup, and hopefully he'll continue to prove. He's just a rookie, and he's transitioning to being a stand-up guy. So it's going to be a process no matter what. But he's somebody that I'm intrigued with, and I'm kind of, I don't want to say flabbergasted, but I'm just kind of questioning the Broncos coaches with this move. Just because I think he'd be such a better fit in 3 technique. The Tom Johnson comparison that you came up with was absolutely spot on. That's who he looked like to me in college, and with that swim and rip move that he has so strong where he's lining up against that guard one-on-one, I think he'd be a very strong player there. And with the hits that we keep taking on the defensive line, Derek Wolfe, Billy Wynn, Jared Crick, we were thin at edge, but now we're thin at interior defensive line. So I guess either way, you're going to be not as happy as you'd like to be with the depth there. But we'll see what happens. And he's, again, tougher matchups this week with the 49ers tackles. Tackles are just a little bit better than the Bears. Interior offensive line, not as good, but the tackles are better. So we'll see. And it's his second matchup, so hopefully he'll continue to improve and maybe notch his first sack.
I wouldn't mind that one bit. Yeah, that's it'll be interesting to watch his development. Like you said, that switch to edge is a very interesting move by the Broncos. And I understand why they made it. And he was always kind of that tweener anyway. Wasn't a great fit at 5 tech, but also wasn't a stand-up guy. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how he does. And maybe he does try to lose a little bit more weight as the season goes on to better fit on the edge and be able to get a little bit more burst. And because he had a couple plays, he was close. He wasn't able to quite turn the corner like you'd like.
Yeah.
He didn't have that Von Miller bend. What do you call it? The ankle bend or whatever?
Ankle flexibility.
Ankle flexibility that you got in trouble for.
I didn't get in trouble, but just some noob doesn't know scouting was like, oh yeah, ankle flexibility. I'm talking about it, because obviously turning that quarter and getting a tight angle is important for that edge rusher. It's not the end all be all, but it is important. This guy's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, come on, dude. I talk with scouts. I do this. Like this is a thing. It's not the end all be all, but this is why they have drills for flexibility in the knee and the ankle, because you got to have that edge rusher bend the corner.
Right, exactly. And yeah, he didn't have that. And that was his problem, was he beat his tackle a couple times. He just couldn't quite get around the corner to get to the quarterback. And
he did have better flexibility than he ever had in college tape. Granted,
yeah, I agree. And
he had better than
I think all of us were a little bit more astonished by how he did, I guess, compared to what we thought would happen. At least I was. Yeah. I was very shocked when all of a sudden I'm going, who was it that just came around the edge? Oh, my goodness, Walker? So I'll be the first to admit, he impressed me more than I thought he would. But he still has a long ways to go. That's the main thing where I think we're both trying to get across. He had a couple moments. He's just got to get consistent with those moments, and he's got to show a better ability to anchor and hold up in the run game. Those are his big things. And then just work on, being that outside linebacker, stand up in your stance, try to get around the corner kind of guy. If that's what they're going to have him be. I still think once those other guys come back, they have him transition more back to inside. But right now, out of necessity, they kind of have him out there.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, let's look at another position that I'm not sure. Did they even play in the game this last week?
There was a hold by one of them, and Austin Traylor had a hold. But other than that, I don't think so.
The tight end position. Oh, I was really hoping we'd at least see one of these guys make one play, and it's hard. It's preseason, and I understand most of these guys are only getting like a quarter and a half of play. And so you have very limited snaps. It's the same with quarterbacks where, they attempted 7 passes and 9 passes between Paxton and Simeon. So as much as you want to read into it, there's still some, hey, how much can we really get out of such few snaps? And so tight ends, again, how much can we really get out of them? But I watched them when I was watching Cody Latimer. Because a lot of times what they would do is they would line up a tight end, usually Hireman, and then they'd line up McKenzie in the slot position and then Cody Latimer on the outside. And Hireman, he had a couple times he got close to being open, but he just wasn't getting there fast enough. And then I saw a couple times where he had an in route where it was pretty much like he just kind of like angled across the field to his spot. Like there was no, hey, let's push up the field, push the linebacker, and then cut across. It was, I'm going to run at a weird kind of slanted angle to my spot. And I just about wanted to pull my hair out. It was terrible, terrible route running. And it was just so easy for the linebacker, like, oh, he's cutting across the field. This is an easy route to follow. And I don't know. So it was saddening. And I don't know. We'll have to see if maybe one of these guys, because we need somebody in the middle of the field to do something in the passing game. And it can't just be the slot receiver. It has to be able to be a tight end as well. And AJ Derby, I've heard he's had a decent camp, that they've been really working on him with his blocking especially. Which
is needed.
Yeah.
He struggled this week.
We heard that Green might actually get traded, or they're working on a trade to the Bears. So that's a little piece of information for all of you out there, to be keeping an eye on. We've heard that he's kind of been a little bit down over the last few weeks of just his role with the team, because they've kind of been transitioning to more of a Hireman and Derby look, and also hoping that Butt can get back here pretty soon. Butt can get his butt on the field pretty much.
But
yeah, had to throw it in. You can't talk about him and not have a butt joke, It's not, you can't have it. But anyway, yes, tight ends, got to see them more this week. Got to see the team figure out some way to get them involved, or for one of them has to step up, because we need one of them to be a great option, more than just a run blocker, more than just a guy trying to take up some space and take up a coverage guy. And so far that just hasn't been the case. I don't know. Give me
That's
some
as much
hope.
on the quarterbacks though.
Yeah, it is. That's part of it. It's an entire thing. You're like wide receiver and tight end. They're both dependent positions. So if you have quarterbacks that aren't targeting at anybody over the middle because they don't feel comfortable throwing over the middle, not much you can do about that. At the same time,
wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And so, that's part of it. But also they got to work to get open. Like I said, Hireman with his route running, that doesn't do anything to help your quarterback.
No.
And so they got to show better. It's going to definitely be a position that I'm going to keep my eye on for this next game.
It should be a position that they look at this week, and it's going to be a little tougher for them because the 49ers do have some decent cover linebackers. They got Dakota Watson, who was a Bronco before. He's playing more of the offline role. Reuben Foster, who many Bronco fans were upset about, that they took Garrett Bowles instead of him, which Reuben Foster has been doing great in camp. But, you got to remember he's a 229-pound linebacker with an arthritic shoulder and some questionable intelligence. So I'm going to stick with Garrett Bowles in that regard. I'll take the tackle every time. And they got the former great linebacker. We're not sure how he's going to do with coming back from all these injuries, but Navarro Bowman. So along with the two safeties, Jimmy Ward and Eric Reed, this is going to be a tougher matchup this week than what they had at the Bears last week, because they do have some guys that can cover tight ends. So I'm looking for the quarterbacks to work that middle of the field. And McCoy, he used Gates and Hunter Henry so much last year that I want to see something from the tight ends. I played tight end and defensive end in high school. Those are my favorite positions. So defensive line and offensive line nowadays, I like the bigger boys, but I want to have a tight end, and they did not show it this week. So we'll see. You had all the buzz from Hireman. It seems like every other touchdown catch was a Hireman getting one in preseason and training camp. Not preseason, but in training camp. So maybe we just need to get in the red zone. That hasn't happened yet.
That's true. Yeah, that's where they should shine.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I look for them to try to see what they can do over the middle of the field a little bit more, challenge those quarterbacks. Hey, let's be a little bit more aggressive in some of this and see who can win in the middle of the field. So, yeah, definitely a position to keep an eye on. And I don't know. We'll see what we got here moving forward. Hopefully, like I said, McCoy loves his tight ends, always has. And last year, I think they had between Hunter Henry and Gates.
Gates.
I think, sorry, I had a brain fart there of who I was looking for. They had, I think, 15 touchdowns between the two of them. That would be incredible. You think of Trevor Siemian had 18 touchdowns. Paxton Lynch had 2 touchdown passes this past year. So they had 20 touchdowns. That's 3/4 of their touchdowns right there that could be going to tight ends. Hopefully they're doing better than that this year. But yeah, so that's a position we need to see step up on the offense. But moving on here, we have one other really big position group to kind of talk about. And it's one I'm very interested to kind of, I guess, hear what you have to say of maybe this one guy. Is he going to make it? And that is the running back position, and especially Jamal Charles. We have a second week in a row where he is not playing. We have him now missing a couple practices. I don't know, veterans rest, whatever you want to call it, I guess. But you have other guys really starting to step into the position. D'Angelo Henderson, Hop Henderson. Oh, my goodness. He was amazing this last week.
The hype is real.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. His ability to make guys miss in the open field, I haven't seen that out of a Bronco running back in a long time. I can't remember the last time I saw a Bronco running back just embarrass guys like that. So, yeah, he's real. You know, Stephen Ridley, he didn't have a great game, I wouldn't say.
He didn't have great blocking, though.
Yeah, he didn't have that, and he didn't embarrass himself either. You know, he didn't go crazy, but he didn't all of a sudden have all these negative plays either. So,
pause. He was a little bit embarrassing wearing that number 4 as a running back, though. That's got to be embarrassing. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. And, of course, you have C.J. Anderson. You know, he's making the team. And then, you know, Booker, when he comes back, he's going to make the team. They're not going to lose him. I mean, they were talking that he was at one time pushing Anderson for the starting role. So that leaves Charles of, you know, I can't see them keeping 5 running backs and a fullback. You know, we already know that Janovich is going to make this team. So do you think that Jamal Charles, if they were cutting down the team today, would Jamal Charles be on this team?
Let me see. You got C.J. Anderson, you got Henderson, you got Ridley, you got Charles, and you got Booker. I think Booker maybe you can get away with him since can you put him on PUP? I don't even know about that one because he hasn't played in preseason. It was in OTAs, wasn't it?
I can't remember. Yeah, that'd be something we'd have to look into.
So if you can, you know, get away with him on the PUP and then bring him back, you know, week 8, because odds are one of the running backs is going to get dinged up. That's just the nature of the game. So that would be ideal. That way you could keep Ridley as the number 2, CJ as the number 1, Jamal Charles as that third down type, and then Henderson as just a wild card. That's what would be ideal. But that said, he's going to have to show. Ridley's playing very well, and if he doesn't look like his old self, and he's going to practice this week. He's not going to play, but he is going to go in the practices against the 49ers. So the coaches will get a little bit of an idea of what he has, you know, in action against another team. But I think if Ridley, the guys that I keep talking to at the team, they're so impressed by Ridley, how he's playing. He didn't look that great this week with the second team offensive line, especially the tackles. They did a good job. You know, Sambrelo and Donald Stevenson weren't the worst actually with the pass blocking, but their run blocking, they got very little push. So Ridley's somebody I think he might get some first team reps this week. I heard about C.J. Anderson. He reviewing film. He was not happy with himself. He missed several holes, which is something he kind of struggled with last year outside the Houston game. And Ridley did not miss as many. Granted, there were less holes. So we'll see. They might be pushing C.J. You know, Ridley is a shock to me. I did not think he would come back the same. You know, a lot of times those guys with that second, I think he had a second ACL injury, just did not look the same coming back off of that. So we'll see. It's very interesting. I'm also interested to see if the quarterbacks will get the running backs involved in the pass game at all. You know, the 49ers, like we talked about, they have a pretty good linebacking core, and they got a better, more talented, younger defensive line. So these running backs are going to have a difficult challenge this week. You know, it's still the 49ers. They're not great. They did give up a lot of rushing yards last year. That has partially to do with their offense being horrible and always playing from behind. But it's a very interesting matchup. Yeah. No, I mean, we have a great defense at least. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And I mean, you got to be hyped up about D'Angelo Henderson. I almost want to go back. I already did a film article this week, which takes, you know, a while to do, as you know, because you have to review it and then find the right plays and then write them up and then make sure it's still an article. It's probably about 3 times as much work as a normal article. But I almost want to go back and do a D'Angelo Henderson one because he was that fun to watch. He had 2 of his big plays brought back due to holding penalties, and I think he's going to excite again this week. He didn't fumble it, so that's something we've been harping on about him as a prospect, is he did have some fumbling issues. But I'm just going to be here for it. I'm going to call the Devonta Freeman hype. You know, that's who he looked like. You got to get him involved in the run game, but he's got squat guy, and his number 1 comparison on Mock Draftable is Devonta Freeman in terms of his height, weight, speed. So yeah, that will wrap up the positions that Carl and I are looking at in terms of the position battle and roster bubble. Not so concerned about the secondary or the linebackers. You know, there isn't really too much of a guys that stood out in that regard or ones that, you know, shocked us horribly wrong. But running back, wide receiver after the top 2, edge rusher, and tight end, you know, there's still a lot of questions there. And we'll, of course, you know, quarterback battle, we'll save that for the end. But a lot of talent, and I'm excited to have depth, especially at running back. And with the guys playing well at edge rusher, without our top 3 edge rushers there and the best defensive player in football, Von Miller, I mean, John Elway, you can say what you want about his eye for offensive talent, but he's been killing it on the defensive side, and this is just further proof of it. We got talent in spades in the defense. So I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to see it this week. But now we're going to move on to the key matchups for this upcoming week. We kind of hinted at it when going over the roster bubble stuff, but this is more of a breaking down areas that are going to be key battles for if the Broncos are going to, win this week. It's not as important to win the preseason games, obviously. Just look at the Patriots losing to the Jags last week. Who cares? That's not going to happen in the regular season. But still, key matchups in terms of how the first team units go against the first team of the 49ers. The first one, obviously, I feel like we're going to do this probably every week. It's just how the Broncos offensive line matches up against the 49ers. 49ers defensive line is probably one of the best units on the team. They have 3 former high first-round selections, a 3rd overall pick last year in Solomon Thomas, who was, I believe, finished as my 2nd favorite player in the class. Just a very good interior pass rusher and a smart guy, very strong. He's not Aaron Donald, but he's almost like a Fletcher Cox type. He's going to get stronger, and I think he's going to be a great player. Eric Armstead, who's supposedly lost a decent amount of weight and is going to be playing more on the edge this year, and one of my favorite young defensive linemen, who I think is a budding young Calais Campbell, and DeForest Buckner, 6'7", 310 pounds. And, I mean, his athleticism at his size is insane. Obviously, the interior defensive line guys, they're more complementary compared to the edge rushers, which they do have Elvis Dumervil, and they have Aaron Lynch, who had 2 sacks last week against the Chiefs. But overall, I think it's this interior defensive line that's going to be a very difficult task for the Broncos offensive line. So we'll see how that goes this week. Do you have any players or specific players you're looking at for that matchup?
Well, obviously, the biggest position that we haven't figured out on this offensive line, left guard. I think we kind of know Watson's going to play at that right tackle position, for better, for worse. Yeah. Sometimes for worse, for sure, like we saw this last week. But that left guard position, Garcia had moments of showing well and then had moments of just completely getting destroyed. Barber, he did pretty good in pass protection, but run blocking, I just wasn't all that impressed. He got pushed back, especially on that, I think it was 3rd or 4th play, 4th down, 4th and 1. And, you're kind of hoping, hey, this is going to be, with all this extra beef that we've added, this is going to be a different team on those short yardage situations. And we had 2 of them this last game, 0 for 2, and yeah, that was our 2nd team offensive line. But Barber's fighting for that first team, and he was the one that got beat on one of those. So, you just – I don't know. I was a little disappointed in him this last week, and Garcia. So one of them needs to show that they want this position. Otherwise, I wouldn't be shocked if McGovern stepped into that spot. He's been getting hyped up. He had a great first game. I mean, yes, considering he was, a guy that didn't play a single down last year and asked to step in there. And I thought he did a great job doing some tandem blocking. And I don't know. I was very impressed with him. So maybe he should get his name in the hat too, with Paradis hopefully being back for the 3rd preseason game. And yeah, that's my big thing, that left guard spot. Who's going to really step up? I'll be watching that one very closely in this next one. Like you said, this is a great unit that they're going against. And if they can hold up, if they can get some push against these guys, it goes a long ways to feeling good about things. I felt really good last week of just seeing our first team offensive line get some really good push in the run game. As much as, Watson struggled in the pass game, he did pretty well in the run game. He got some push for him. Leary, I think he's as advertised. Garcia, he got some good push in the run game. And of course, then Bowles. Man, that pick is just looking better and better with each day that it goes by. As much as people, curse the day that Elway took him, man, he has looked good. He got some great leverage in the pass game, and then of course in the run game, he pushed some guys around, and he didn't back down from anybody. I think he had a couple times where the whistle went off and he kept shoving people for another couple seconds, and the old saying of play to the echo of the whistle. That's what we saw with Bowles. And so, yeah, I had some excitement with the first team and then some disappointment too. And 2nd team unit, they kind of looked like what we had last year. I love the comment by Elway this week. Did you hear it? He said that, He's very excited about the improvement of our offensive line. He said, I think our second team offensive line is better than our first team offensive line last year.
I can't disagree. I mean, they were getting a more push, that's for sure. I mean, you got Michael Schofield as the third string. So if that says anything, pushing him down that far from first to third, hopefully we have better depth there.
I was going to say, I mean, our second team offensive line is about our starting unit last year anyway.
Yeah.
Other than Okung being gone. But yeah. So he's not actually all that off from what he's saying there. It's not just hyperbole that he's trying to get there, but So like I said, they had a little bit of excitement for me, and just have to see if they can continue it, especially against I would say a better unit than what the Bears have, for sure.
I think the Bears have better edge rushers, and they got Aaron Lynch and Doomerville, and who's their other edge rusher? Ahmed Brooks, who's more of a strong side stand-up edge. But overall, their interior defensive line is one of the more talented ones. They're still really young, they're going to have to grow, but overall, as far as talent goes, very talented unit. So they're going to have their hands full in that regard, and hopefully they'll get some clarity at the left guard position. But you stole my idea. I'm thinking I would love to see McGovern get some work at left guard. I mean, I love him at center, but he's strong. He moved well. He looked like he was in sync with Leary, and you plug Paradis in and move McGovern over to left guard, and you may have something. So hopefully, I would love to see him just give it a chance when Matt Paradis comes back. Probably won't happen, at least right away. I'm guessing they're going to give Barber and Garcia some time, but if that left guard continues to struggle and Paradis is healthy at center, we may see it at some point this season. So McGovern was a great draft pick, I think 5th round pick, but he killed it at the combine and a weightlifting phenom. And that may be one of the hits for the Elway and the offensive line. So maybe we'll have to start changing that narrative. One can hope.
Yeah, if we get 3 starters out of draft picks, that'd be huge. And like I said, it would change a lot of people's views, I think, on Elway and the offense a little bit. I mean, it still comes down to the quarterbacks because everybody's still, and
as it should.
Yeah, I agree. Every draft that you take a quarterback, if the quarterback hits, it's a great draft. Quarterback doesn't, it could be a pretty bad draft. So if we could get 3 starters that came from the draft for this team, I mean, that's great to see. It's good for the team. It's good for the cap overall, to have guys locked up for the next few years on some pretty cheap contracts. And so, here's to hoping that those guys work out and we see something great this week again.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we were going to touch on the Broncos run game and tight ends versus the 49ers linebackers, but we kind of already did that with our roster bubble talk. So I'll reiterate it here quickly. The 49ers do have a solid linebacker core if Bowman's healthy. Foster has been great at camp so far for them. He's had multiple interceptions, including pick 6. So it's going to be important to see if the run game can beat those linebackers if they are getting to the second level like they were last week. And if our tight ends and quarterback can get involved over the middle in the passing game, because that's something we did not see last week. So definitely something that you're going to want to watch this week to see, help you decide what quarterback to go with and if the offense is improving. Finally, the last key matchup that we want to talk about for the Broncos was the Broncos backups, D-linemen / front 7. I'm calling them backup because we're so injured versus the 49ers run game and offensive line. 49ers do have a solid offensive line like we've talked about. Their tackles are solid in Staley and Brown, but they also have an okay interior. They got former Bronco Zane Beatles, who's a solid mover, never been an exceptional guard, but a solid starter. Kilgore, who's somebody I am not super familiar with at center. They've been kind of shuffling at center, and they don't really have an answer there. And former first-round pick from last year, Joshua Garnett at right guard, who's a hulking, earth-moving guard. So the Broncos defensive line is going to have some trouble this week, especially with the lack of depth they have. Without Wolf and Crick, may potentially into the regular season, and without Wynn the rest of the year, we've suffered some monumental losses in terms of in the run stuffing department. So the second string D line is going to have to step up, and the second and third string defensive line struggled last week against the Bears. Tariq Cohen and Cunningham were getting some very large run lanes, and they were making us pay. So that was partially due with the edge as well. Walker was struggling somewhat to hold the edge in the run game, but the Bears were running the ball pretty effectively once the second and third team got in, and Trubisky was not getting pressured that much. So the second and third team unit, which might have to be some first-team unit depending on the injuries, is going to really have to step up this week if the Broncos are going to compete in this game, because the 49ers don't have a great passing game. As much as I love their third-string quarterback, CJ Beathard, okay, he had a great game actually last week, but again, third string. But it's going to come down probably to the ground game, and if we're going to see improvement this year, we're going to need better depth, and some of these guys are going to get a chance to shine, specifically Adam Gotsis. If you are a VIP of the Mile High Huddle, part of Scout.com, you have access to premium film breakdowns, and Carl has one coming up tomorrow on Cody Latimer. Writer Colby Valdez had one today on Jamal Carter, and I had one come out yesterday on Adam Gotsis, who had a great game. He had very good length, get off, played with good leverage, and he showed a swim move that I hadn't seen from him in the past. So he's learning, and he was strong and able to anchor better than he had in years past. So Gotsis is going to have to step up. Pecco's going to have to step up. Tyreek Jarrett's going to have to step up. Shelby Harris. And we also signed defensive lineman Nelson Adams, who was an undrafted free agent. 6'3", 287 pounds out of Mississippi State. Had 80 tackles, 4 sacks, and 4 pass breakups during his time playing for the Bulldogs. And was signed by the Steelers in May, but was cut last week. So, he's going to get some reps. Soto. So those guys are going to have to step up, and they have an opportunity to shine. It's unfortunate about Wynn being out for the season. He was actually playing pretty well. I was surprised. He was handling double teams like a boss. I thought he was maybe even looking a little better than Pecco there was for a second. But young guys got to step up because the 49ers do not have a good passing game. So if they're going to compete in this game, they're going to have to run it. And Denver's defensive line is going to have to step up.
Yeah, I read your Gotsis piece, and I would highly recommend anybody out there to make sure to go check that out if you can and get signed up. We have a great deal going on right now you get 4 months for the price of 1 for our premium. And so I just want to plug that in there. And I'm not just trying to do that just to increase our, the website or anything like that, but it's worth it because there's a lot of great pieces in there. And we have a lot of great football minds that write for Mile High Huddle. And of course, Nick is one of those. And you can definitely see his scout's eye of how he's trying to look at a player. And I made that comment to him. I said, you can definitely tell you're a scout kind of guy. So, but yeah, he does a great job just showing some of the things that he's really improved on, especially compared to years past, and things he still needs to work on because he still didn't handle double teams as well as you would hope sometimes. And he's got to show a better consistency to his game. And this is a great opportunity to work on that. And yeah, the second and third team units last week, the first team unit, I was blown away by how well they did against the run. Derek Wolfe, he was doing Derek Wolfe things, but you saw other guys doing a lot of the same things. You saw Adam Gotsis get some push. You saw Jared Crick. Oh my goodness. He was the guy that surprised me. You always hear these guys that say, oh yeah, gain some weight, gain some strength. And, I'm just doing better than I've ever done before. But he showed it. He did well holding up against double teams. He did well holding his point of contact. He did well getting some penetration. And so, yeah, I wish him well in his recovery. And as much as the Broncos have the injury bug, thank you that it's not season-ending stuff, except, of course, we were lost for the season. But Wolf and Crick, I don't know what we would have done if we lost both of them for the year. So thankfully they'll be back. But, yeah, this is a big opportunity for those other guys to show that they – maybe Wynn had a roster spot that he was getting ready to wrap up. So that leaves a spot open. Who takes it? Does this leave Tyreek Jarrett where they're needing that second big time nose tackle? Does this open up the opportunity for him? And this will be like I said, a great game for them to really prove themselves. And the interior of the 49ers, it's other than Garnett, I don't think it's all that great. Beatles has kind of struggled ever since he left the Broncos. Kilgore, I'm kind of like with you, kind of going, who? Yeah. So they have an opportunity to maybe win some battles there in the interior. But they also have the 49ers have an opportunity against our guys to get some push. So we'll just have to see who wins that battle. And then, of course, our inside linebackers, they did decently last week. But, again, they need to step up a little bit more. We've been without Todd Davis. Thankfully, it sounds like he is getting healthy and will be ready for the season. And just have to see the other guys because I wasn't very impressed by especially Zaire Anderson.
Yeah, he struggled.
I know you're a big fan of his, and I've I've seen the ability in him too, but I just wonder, is he the same player since his concussion?
He might not be. He might not be. That happens. Corey Nelson didn't impress me that much either, especially a run stuffer. They talk about him being a good pass defending linebacker, which you need, but I mean, Jamal Carter was playing that pass defending linebacker role, so we'll see. Corey Nelson he's not, in danger of losing his spot. That's inside linebacker. Don't love our depth there. It's
definitely one of our bigger weaknesses right now I'd say even quality starters. I mean, Brandon Marshall, of course, is a quality starter. Todd Davis has been very up and down. He has some games that he looks pretty good, and then other games he just really falls apart, and he's not great in coverage. And, then our backup guys, Zaire Anderson, Corey Nelson, neither of them looked all that great last week, and both are more backup quality kind of guys. So, I don't know. We'll see. That's a position that can definitely be upgraded. And it might be a position that they look for on cutdown day. See if they have somebody that they like. I don't know. We'll have to see on that. But, that'll be a great battle. Great opportunity for the Broncos to show hopefully the depth that they have on the defensive line and hopefully contain that run game that the 49ers, I'm sure, are going to try to establish.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have gone long because Carl and I are windbags and like to talk forever, but we got to talk about the most important thing here, and that is the quarterback battle. And hopefully you're still with us, but this is going to be a big week I'm going to call him your boy because he is your boy. You're not backing down. Your boy Paxton Lynch going with the first team. But
I doubled down on my bet.
Yeah, you doubled down. You said you were offering me
buying drinks for Nick and his girlfriend if Paxton Lynch is not the starter week 1. So, John Elway, if you're listening, start Paxton Lynch so I don't lose this bet and have to buy all these drinks. Beyond that, yes, this is a really big week for him. Some would say he's already lost the battle.
He might have. He did not look good in that game.
No, this is what I went back and watched because I had to watch for Cody Latimer, so I went back and watched Paxton Lynch. He started out the game 1 for 4. Not good. He was overthrowing footballs. He was not looking comfortable in the pocket. But once they came out in the second half, he kind of calmed down. He went 5 for 6, and a lot of his throws were pretty accurate. There was one that was a little bit ahead of Cody Latimer that he kind of had to reach out and make a tough grab. But beyond that, they were actually on target, on time. He looked a little bit better. And he had his best drive. He played only 2 drives in the second half. And he had the one where it kind of stalled out there a little bit past midfield where they weren't able to pick up the 4th and 1. So I kind of wonder if you're looking at the full picture of what happened, he didn't look great. If you're looking at maybe he calmed down there in the second half a little bit, maybe you think a little bit better of how he played. So I guess just depending on how you want to look at it with him, I'm keeping the full picture just because, you can't look past how he didn't pick up a first down for the first 2 drives that he was in. You can't look past how much he overthrew his wide receivers. You can't look past the fact that he would take his one read, wouldn't like it, and you would see that he'd get happy feet. He'd almost be almost like what Tim Tebow used to be of one read and then look to run. And I don't like that look because Paxton's better than that. He's a quarterback that can throw. He was very accurate in college. People kind of forget about that. He was actually a pretty accurate college football player. So he's got to show better patience. He's got to show better ability to handle staying in the pocket with guys flying around him and go through his reads. That's his big thing. If his first target is open, he is a highly accurate football player. He can make the throw. He can hit guys in stride, all those kind of things. His issue has always been when he has to reset his feet to make a throw, it doesn't go well. He loses all of his accuracy and that's tough to see. And he's got to go out there and you have a note here that says, be a quarterback, not a running back. And that's so true of him. I love that he can run, but that shouldn't be his second option. That shouldn't be his, read my one guy and then I'm going to take off running. That's not going to get you very far in the NFL.
Not at all.
No, not at all. And so he's got to prove so much this week. And it might be too monumental for him to overcome, but I'm sticking with my guy just because the upside, I think if you get him a couple of games where you can really get him in game situations and just get him comfortable a little bit. And I think he can maybe start to see some things click. But I don't know. Right now, it just seems like his confidence is gone. Earlier in OTAs and early in training camp, we were hearing about him just making all these big time throws, and just seemed like he had like 2 or 3 bad days in a row, and he just never got out of it. And so, yeah, I don't know. This will be such a big week for him, bigger than probably for Simeon. Simeon, he could probably go out there and do exactly what he did against the Bears, and he's not going to lose the battle. It's up to Paxton to have to go out there and make some wow plays that make the coaches really have to go back and talk and say, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just take the chance with this guy. Let him go out there and make some plays for us. That's kind of where I'm at. He's really got to wow people. He can't just go out there and go 7 of 10 for 70 yards and maybe 1 touchdown. It's got to be 7 of 10 for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, and really moving the offense, I think. I hate to say that, but that's kind of where it is right now.
Yeah, for me, Paxton he looked like a guy who had no confidence in what he was seeing. And if his first read wasn't there, he panicked, pulled the ball down, and looked to escape the pocket and run. And that's not something you want to see from your quarterback. They have to be able to stand tall, go through their progressions, and deliver a strike, even if the guy's barreling in on them. And I don't even think he was getting hit that much. I mean, he was having a pretty decent pocket. But once the first read wasn't there, the wheels started grinding and just did not know where to go with the ball. And you did say that he came out in the second half and looked better, but I feel like they almost went to more of a college-style system in that second half. Almost all of his snaps were out of the shotgun, and they were first read throws to slants to Cody Latimer, essentially. And that's, you're not going to be able to get away with doing that play after play in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to adjust. And so he needs to show NFL-style throws. Throw some out routes, throw some crossing patterns, throw a post. So that he's going to have to do that, and 49ers do not have the best defense, so he's going to have a chance to do that. And like you mentioned, my big note, it's all caps, be a quarterback, not a running back. He looks to what I look for when I want a quarterback. I love a quarterback with athleticism, but he needs to use that athleticism to buy time to still be a thrower. That's what the best quarterbacks do. They don't just tuck and run. What they do is they escape, manipulate the pocket, and then if that doesn't work, escape, and then reset their feet and their shoulders. So that way they can deliver a strike on a broken play or just farther down the field after they've bought time. And that's not something he's doing right now. So he's not utilizing his athleticism as a quarterback. For me, Simeon just has to do more of the same. I would like to see some more tests down the field this week. Like his one versus Emmanuel Sanders, or for Emmanuel Sanders down the left sideline was great, and he should be trying to do that more with Demaryius Thomas. We need some big strikes, and I'd also like to see him work to the tight ends and the running backs as well, just because he hasn't done that as well. Last season, he didn't do it at all this week. Granted, 7 passes, 6 for 7. Can't ask for too much more from him, especially with the lack of consistency the offense had with all the penalties going back and forth. Finally, I would like to see him manipulate the pocket a little better and help his O-line out. Last year, Simeon had a tendency to drop way too far back in his steps and really surrender the edge for the edge rushers, not help his offensive tackles out at all. And I saw a few times where he stepped up and manipulated the pocket in that regard, but he needs to continue to do that. It's not always going to be a clean pocket. He's going to have to use his feet to move around to get different angles, throw off a different platform, and just help out his offensive line. So want to see more of that. Need to execute drives. They need to sustain them, not by penalties. And I want to see them finish drives. So much of the issues last year was that the Broncos would go down the field and they'd stall at the 30 and have to kick a field goal. And we saw that with Simeon this week. Granted, it was I kind of want to almost throw that drive out just because of all the penalties. Even all the positives, I think we got like 50 yards from Bears penalties, but then we had penalties that drove them back. So that kind of ruined all the rhythm. Granted, that's kind of typical of preseason football, all the flags, but still don't want to see that. And I want to see them not be afraid to make magic. It is preseason. Go out there and take some chances. The outcome of the game doesn't really matter. So go find out what you can do. Use your legs, throw the ball downfield, let your playmakers go get a play. Let your playmakers go make a play, and just go play football. So now that we are down to potentially the last game of the quarterback battle, are you sticking with it? You really think Paxton is going to get it, or is that your heart talking?
Oh, it's my heart talking the whole way.
Okay.
I can admit that. I'll be honest about that. But there's something. I just feel like when he is really backed into a corner, I think he can go do something. I've gone back and I've watched that, especially that game against Ole Miss, where the biggest win of his career for sure. The game that got his name on the radar, and his team was down 14 points, and everybody was just kind of like, well, this is how this game's going to go. They're going to get blown out, and next thing you know, he's just making these throws out of nowhere. And he's just hitting guys in stride. He's getting guys where they can go make some plays, run down the field, turn a 10-yard pass into a 50-yard pass. And I was blown away. And that's what reminded me of why I like this guy. That he doesn't back down from a situation. And I hope that's still who he is. That's the big question is, has his confidence just gone down that much that maybe he just can't reach that point right now? But I don't know. Like I said, I'm still going with my heart. I'm still thinking he's going to do enough to really make the coaches go, you know what, let's just do this. We know with Simeon that we're not a playoff team.
Never say never.
I'm not saying never say never because we have a great defense. We do. And they can go make some plays. We have what I think will be an improved run game. I think we have an improved offensive line. So, even if Simeon played like he did last year, maybe we could sneak in there as a wild card. But I don't know. I guess I'm wanting to go see what this guy is. And I would hate to go into next year. I had somebody ask the question of, say Simeon wins it this year. Are we asking these exact same questions next year? Are we still having a quarterback battle? Are we still wondering what Paxton Lynch is? Are we still are we going to have to go to the draft? Do we even want to go to the draft and take that quarterback? We're going to talk about that later this week.
Tune in later this week.
Yeah. That's a huge question of are we going to have to draft a new quarterback? And this is going to be a great quarterback draft is what it's shaping up to be. So do you want to miss out on that because you're just hoping that Paxton Lynch maybe could develop? I don't know. So I want to see what he can become. And I think that's why this quarterback battle hasn't been called yet, because the coaches are in that same build. They see the talent. I mean, every day at practice, it's almost every single day he has made the throw of the day. So the talent is there. They know that. They just can't see the consistency, and that's why they can't give it to him, but yet why they can't take it away from him either. Simeon, he's done his Simeon thing of go make the safe throw, don't make the huge mistake, and don't lose this battle. And they pretty much said, Paxton, go take this, and he just hasn't done it. And that saddens me because it hurts the Broncos big time not to have that dynamic quarterback. But I don't know. So, yeah, I still keep thinking at one point he's just going to have that day where everything just clicks, and he's just going to wow people. And it's got to be this week if he's going to do it.
It's got to be. It's now or never. Sink or swim. So it's too early to give up on him. We always knew he'd be a project. But for me, worst case scenario, the team finishes around 8-8, 7-9, keeps Simeon in there for a long time because, we're floating around that contention area, and we still don't know what Paxton is while having a middling pick and wasting another year of this defense. That's worst case scenario for me. So we will see what happens. I think Simeon can improve. He's a smart quarterback. He has the necessary arm strength to push the ball when he needs to, but he needs to do a better job coming off that first read. We'll break down the quarterbacks. We're going to be talking a lot about them this week with the upcoming episode for the roster breakdown. But overall, I'm excited to see both of them this week, and I'm hoping both succeed because I think they can, because the 49ers defense sucks. So, all right. Well, now on to our last segment of the preview episode. We're going to be our player to watch this week, our highlighted player. And for me, after reading Colby Valdez's piece, the VIP piece, which I recommend everybody to go check out, Jamal Carter, undrafted free agent, safety from the University of Miami. And man, that dude was all over the effing field this week. I was shocked. I can say effing. This is a family podcast, but that won't get me the censors won't get me for that. But wow, what an effing talent. He compared him to Deion Buchanan of the Arizona Cardinals, and I can't say I disagree. 6'1", I believe around 210 pounds, and played with his hair on fire. I mean, he just looks different. He looks like a developed pro, and just an athletic freak. Worst case scenario, he's going to get on the field more as a special teams guy because he is big, height, weight, speed kind of guy. And he had some raw mental processing ability. Sometimes he takes poor angles and will be a little flat-footed, especially in coverage. But him coming downhill and playing that, that safety in the box type, so much fun. And I think he's going to get more work this week. I can't imagine TJ Ward playing at all. If he does, it's going to be a very small role. I don't think he's playing, though. And Jamal's going to get some more work, and he looked like a toy that Joe Woods is going to have a lot of fun using in different ways, and I'm excited to see him in another week.
That's a great pick. Mine is Benny Fowler. Latimer, he kind of threw it down this last week and said, this number 3 wide receiver spot is mine. And so I want to see how Fowler responds. He's always kind of been that more quiet player, like does his job, does it pretty well, but not anything special. So, this is a big game for him too, to be able to, this is the difference between maybe playing 30% of the snaps on offense to 2 or 3% of the snaps, depending on injury, obviously. But yeah, he's the guy that he got hyped up this offseason. DT was talking about him where they did this big diet together to lose some weight, to get a little bit faster, get a little bit quicker, and to stay a little bit healthier. Coaches were hyping him up saying, yep, he's the number 3 right now, all that kind of stuff. He hasn't done anything to lose the job and just nothing in that first game. I think he got thrown at once on that overthrow by Paxton, and that was it. And I watched him on a few plays where I tried to see, hey, is it just because they're looking at Latimer and Fowler's getting open on the other side? I didn't see him getting open. I didn't see him doing anything that made me go, wow, this guy, he's going to do something. So, like I said, this is a big week for him. Really show that he's still in this battle for that number 3 wide receiver spot. And I really do think the coaches want him to take it. You and I we've talked to some people connected to the team that they are worried about Latimer being that number 3 wide receiver. They are worried that they have seen this whole thing play out before of him looking good, come season, nothing. And so they were hoping somebody else would step up. Will that be Fowler? I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, that will wrap up our first solo episode of the preview podcast for the Huddle Up podcast. Thank you for your tuning in through our deep dives throughout this, and hopefully you enjoyed our preview episode, even though we ran a little longer than we wanted. Sorry to our editor, Chad, for that. You're the real MVP here. Preseason is here, so make sure you keep listening for our preview and post-view episodes of all preseason games. Bronco fans, make sure you keep checking back on Mile High Huddle for all your updates on camp battles and all other Bronco news. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH, as well as find our Denver Bronco articles and content on Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of Scout.com and the CBS Sports Digital Network. Check out all of our VIP pieces that have been released this week as well. Film articles. We're Scout guys, so we really like to break down film. And what better way to do that than GIFs with written details about how the play went down and why it went down the way it did. Goatsis, Latimer, Carter, great plays.
Also, if there's any player that you would like us to break down, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to do that. And I was thinking about doing a D'Angelo Henderson one, but just didn't have the time with 2 podcasts, a full-time gig, practicing my violin, all that fun stuff. So we love to do it. And if you guys have anything for us, reach out to us. You can follow the Huddle Up podcast by subscribing on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher, Spreaker, CastBox, SoundCloud, etc., etc. You can also follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up our first solo episode of the Broncos preview episode in the Huddle Up podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next week, or I guess later this week, for the final episode of the roster deep dive with special guest Eric Trickle, who just brought a child into the world. Crazy. You guys are both dads. I do not need to get on it. I'm doing good right now. Let's stop that. I take that back.
You got your cat.
I got my cat. That's good for me. Got my cat. That's good. Cat in school and plenty of football. So that's it for now. And as always, go Broncos.
Mile High Huddle.